At Thanksgiving dinner, my parents told me your job is to work while your sister enjoys life. Simple as that. If you have a problem, there's the door. I said fine. I'll leave. And you can. Start paying your own bills. Simple as that. My name is Lauren Finley, 32 brand manager in Asheville. Last Thanksgiving, I walked into my parents' dining room after a 70-hour week 3 brand contracts on my desk and our family bookstore bleeding cash. Dad didn't even look up. You missed the inventory update. Olivia swept in, glowing from a $4,000 spa weekend mom and dad's gift. Dad grinned. How is the spa princess? I snapped. So, I work while she enjoys. Why is that? Dad locked eyes with me. Your job is to work while your sister enjoys life. Simple as that. If you don't like it, there's the door. I pushed my chair back. Fine. I'll leave and you can start paying your own bills. Simple as that. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Let me know your story down in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know where this hits home for you. That moment at the Thanksgiving table, it wasn't the start. It was just the end of a lifetime of being the responsible one. Growing up in Asheville, Finley Books was my whole world. It smelled like old paper floor wax and my dad's faint pipe tobacco. While other kids were playing, I was learning. At 9, I was using the adding machine in the back office. At 12, I was learning the inventory system. By 14, I was balancing the ledgers every single weekend. My sister, Olivia, she was different. She was the inspiration. While I was in the dusty back room processing shipment manifests, she was up front sitting on a stool reading poetry aloud to customers. My dad, Richard, loved it. He said it created atmosphere. I remember when I was 13, I spent an entire month redesigning the store's window display for the holiday season. I tracked the sales. Foot traffic went up. Sales increased by 20% that December. My dad nodded when I showed him the numbers. Good work, Lauren. Reliability is a fine trait. Reliability, not talent, not vision, reliability. 2 weeks later, Olivia used a silver Sharpie to draw a doodle of a cat on a blank bookmark. My mom, Karen, had it professionally framed. Framed. She hung it behind the cash register. She told customers she just has the soul of an artist. My hard work was utility. Her doodles were art. I became the engine. The invisible, reliable engine that kept the store running. I restocked the shelves, I handled the difficult special orders, I dealt with the angry customers. Olivia was the shiny, expensive ornament they hung on the tree. She was the one they took to poetry slams in Atlanta, proud to introduce their creative daughter. I was the one they left behind to mind the store. I internalized that message so deeply I didn't even question it. My value wasn't in who I was, it was in what I could provide. If I wasn't useful, I was nothing. This dynamic didn't just stay in childhood, it became the blueprint for my entire adult life. When I went to college, I did it on academic scholarships and a mountain of student loans. I worked 2 jobs, one in the university library, one waiting tables just to cover my books and rent. I graduated with $60,000 in debt, clawing my way into my first job as a brand manager. Olivia. She explored her options, which meant Dad paid for a creative writing retreat in Vermont, then a networking trip to New York. She was finding her voice. I was just trying to find a way to pay my electric bill. The bookstore was struggling badly. Online retailers were eating them alive. But I was finally stable. I had my own apartment, my own career. I thought I was free. Then the phone call came. It was Dad. His voice was different. Scared. Lauren, he said, the gruffness gone. I need your help. The bookstore. We're a few months behind. Just for a little while. Just until we get back on our feet. And that old feeling rushed back in. The cold dread in my stomach. The familiar heavy weight of responsibility. The need to be useful. The need to be the reliable one. The need to save them. So I said yes. Just for a few months, he'd said. Just until we get back on our feet. So I agreed. The first transfer of $2,500 left my account. The next month, another. And the next. Soon a few months turned into a year, then 2, then 4. 4 years of me in my small Asheville apartment working 70-hour weeks as a brand manager, meticulously managing my own $60,000 student loan debt, while also paying my father's mortgage and funding my sister's creative exploration. I cut back on everything. I stopped buying new clothes. I canceled my vacation plans. I ate leftovers for lunch. Every spare dollar went to them. And I know what you're thinking. Why? Why would you do that? Why not just say no? It's a fair question. It's the question I asked myself every single night. You have to understand, when you're raised to be the reliable one, it's not just a role, it's an identity. It's a prison with no bars. You are trapped by the invisible chains of their expectations. I had spent my entire life learning a single toxic lesson: my only value was my utility. My only worth was in what I could provide. Love in my family wasn't given, it was earned. It was the quiet nod when I fixed the inventory, the brief moment of peace when I paid a bill. Saying no wasn't just about money. It felt like it would be an erasure. If I wasn't Lauren the problem solver, Lauren the reliable, was I even Lauren at all? Would they even see me? This is the trap of the survivor. You learn to live on scraps of approval, and you become terrified of the one thing that will set you free. You become convinced that the problem isn't their exploitation. It's your own failure to endure it silently. So I kept paying. I paid when Olivia announced she was taking a sabbatical from her part-time job to find her muse. I paid when my dad complained about the rising cost of utilities, all while he and my mom took a long weekend in Charleston, sending photos from expensive restaurants. I was their solution, and I was becoming a ghost in my own life. My bank account was shrinking, my resentment was growing, and my family just kept taking. I was drowning, but I kept sending the money. I kept telling myself, one more month, just one more month, and they'll finally be stable. One more month, and they'll finally see me. That's what I told myself. One more month. But the problem was, I'm a brand manager. I'm a professional problem solver, and the numbers weren't adding up. I was sending them $2,500 every single month. I was also handling their marketing and university contracts for free, which I knew was worth at least another $2,000 a month in billable hours. And yet, every time I talked to my dad, the bookstore was still sinking. It's just tough out there, Lauren, he'd say. These online giants, we just can't compete. But it felt like more than that. It felt like a leak. A $4,500 a month leak that I was pouring my life into, but I couldn't find the hole. So about a week before that Thanksgiving, I decided to look. I was working late, my own contracts done, and I logged into the Finley Books shared business drive. Not the accounting software he gave me access to. That was just for show. I mean the deep-level server drive. The one he probably forgot I still had an admin password for. I started digging, past the inventory and sales folders, past university orders. I found a folder labeled Archived Invoices Last Fiscal Year. And there it was. It wasn't a bill from a paper supplier. It wasn't an invoice for store rent or utilities. It was a wire transfer receipt for $40,000, paid in full. The recipient wasn't a bookstore vendor. It was a company I'd never heard of, Boutique Muse Publishing. My blood went cold. I Googled the name. It was a vanity press. The kind of company you pay to print your own books. Attached to the receipt in the same folder was a PDF. The file name was O.M. Final Cover. I opened it. It was the cover art for the Whispering Muse poems by Olivia Finley. $40,000. My money. My 70-hour work weeks. My skipped lunches. My own $60,000 student loan debt that I was barely chipping away at. It had all been funneled, laundered right through the bookstore's accounts, to pay for my sister's book of poetry. A book that was probably sitting in boxes, unsold in their garage. I didn't feel anger. I just felt cold. It was the click of a lock, precise and final. My payments weren't saving a family legacy. They were funding a fantasy. They were paying for Olivia's hobbies while I paid for their survival. So, when I walked into that Thanksgiving dinner a week later, exhausted and running on fumes, when I saw Olivia glowing from her $4,000 spa weekend, when my dad looked me dead in the eye and said, "Your job is to work while your sister enjoys life," it wasn't just an insult, it was a business model. He was finally saying the quiet part out loud. And when I pushed back my chair and said, "Fine, I'll leave," it wasn't a threat. It wasn't a moment of drama. It was a resignation. I drove from their house in a daze. I didn't go to my own condo. I drove straight to Ben's. He opened the door and just saw my face. He didn't say a word. He just pulled me inside and I stood in his hallway completely silent. I didn't even cry. I was just done. He held me for a long time. "You were right," I finally whispered into his shoulder. He pulled back his hands on my arms. "What do you want to do now?" I looked at him. The anger was gone. The hurt was gone. All that was left was a strange, sharp, terrible clarity. "I'm done," I said. "No more arguments. No more drama. I'm just done." I sat on his couch in the dark. I opened my laptop. And I started making a plan. Not a loud one. A quiet one. A plan that involved silence and distance and letting gravity finally do its work. I didn't go back to my condo that night. I stayed with Ben. The next morning, while the Asheville mist was still hanging over the mountains, I executed the plan. It was simple. It was methodical. It was bloodless. First, I logged into my bank account. I found the recurring monthly transfer, $2,500, to Finley Books. It had been on autopay for 4 years. My contribution to the family. I clicked cancel this transfer. A little box popped up. "Are you sure you want to cancel this scheduled payment?" I thought of my father's face sneering. "Your job is to work." I thought of Olivia glowing from her $4,000 spa trip. I clicked confirm. Second, I logged into my phone provider's website. I ported my number, the one they'd all had for a decade, to a new account, a new SIM. I paid the one-time fee. It would be active within the hour. Third, I went through every digital connection. Email. Social media. Cloud services. Block Richard Finley. Block Karen Finley. Block Olivia Finley. I didn't send a letter. I didn't send an angry text. My exit at Thanksgiving wasn't an argument, it was a verdict. For a week there was silence. It was the deepest, most profound peace I had felt in my adult life. I went to work. I closed one of the brand contracts. I had dinner with Ben. I slept through the entire night. Then the consequences began. The system propped up only by me started to fail. The emails started coming to my work account. It was the only one they could still find. The first one was from my father using the Finley Books email. The subject line was payment. The body was just, "The payment didn't come through. Fix it." I read it, and I dragged it to the trash. A few days later, another one. This one was frantic. "Lauren, I just got an email from the university. They're canceling the spring textbook order. You didn't send them the confirmation. What is wrong with you? Call me." That was the $25,000 contract. The one I managed every semester. I dragged it to the trash. Another one came a few days after that. The distributor for Olivia's book is threatening legal action. Their $20,000 invoice is past due. "Why didn't you pay this? This is your responsibility. Call me." I dragged it to the trash. The real bomb dropped 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. My Aunt Susan showed up at my condo. She looked pale. "Lauren," she said, holding a thick certified letter. "This came to your parents' house. It's addressed to you." I took it from her. The return address was the Internal Revenue Service. I opened it right there in my doorway. It was an audit notification. "They're auditing the bookstore," I said, confused. "Why is it addressed to me?" "I don't think they're auditing the bookstore," Susan said, her voice low. "Lauren, Richard has been. They're auditing you." I stared at the page, the words blurring. Notice of discrepancy. Associated with filings for Finley Books. "Lauren," Susan said, her voice breaking. For the past 3 years, Richard has been claiming your $2,500 monthly payments as a marketing consulting business expense. I stared at her. He wrote off my payments. It gets worse, she said, pointing to another line. He's also been claiming you, a 32-year-old professional, as a dependent on his personal taxes. The letter was very clear. The IRS was questioning the fraudulent business expenses and the illegal dependent claim. With penalties and back taxes, the IRS was estimating I owed $75,000. The fraud wasn't just on me. The fraud was in my name. I showed the IRS letter to Ben. $75,000. His face went pale. He didn't just use you, Lauren, he said, his voice tight. He framed you. He was right. This wasn't just exploitation anymore. It was a crime, and I was the one holding the evidence. My new phone, the one with the new number, remained silent. But Ben's phone became the new front line. Since they couldn't reach me, my family coordinated their attack on him. It was a masterclass in manipulation. He'd come home from work, look at his phone, and just sigh, playing the voicemails for me on speaker while I made dinner. First, my father, Richard. His voice was no longer pleading, it was pure, explosive rage. Ben, you tell Lauren this has gone on long enough. She's ruining us. This IRS mess is her fault. She's the one who messed with the books. She's the one who set up the payments. She needs to come back and fix what she broke. Do you hear me? She needs to fix this. He never once admitted that he was the one who filed the fraudulent taxes. Then an hour later, my mother, Karen. Hers was the real weapon. All tears and weaponized guilt. Ben, please. Just have her call me. Your father. His health. The stress. I'm so worried he's going to have a heart attack. And Olivia is just heartbroken. She doesn't understand what she did wrong. This is tearing us all apart. Please, just have her call home. And finally, Olivia. No tears, just the sound of pure distilled entitlement. Ben, hi, it's Olivia. Look, I can't believe Lauren is being so jealous and petty. She's always been this way. I don't know what her problem is, but can you please just tell her to send the money so Dad can fix this? It's all just so dramatic. Rage, guilt, entitlement. The three prongs of their attack. They didn't see me as a person. I was a tool that had suddenly refused to work, and they were trying every button they could to turn me back on. The final plea came a few days later through Aunt Susan. She showed up at my condo, looking exhausted. They're desperate, Lauren, she said, twisting her hands in her lap. The IRS won't wait. They're going to lose the store. They're going to lose the house. Everything. I just looked at her. That is the natural consequence of their actions, Susan. I know, she said, dropping her voice. But Richard. He's begging. This is the last time. He just needs you to come. Fix the books. He says you're the only one who understands the numbers. He says he'll make it right. And there it was. The final test. One last time they needed my utility. One last time I could be the good daughter, the reliable one. I could go back, clean up the $75,000 tax fraud mess he had created, and what? Wait for the next crisis. I sat at my laptop that night, with Ben quietly reading on the couch beside me. I drafted one final email. I sent it to my father, my mother, and Aunt Susan, so the message was clear. The subject line was, my final statement. The email was short. I will not be fixing this. The IRS audit is a result of your own fraudulent filings in my name. My separation from this family is permanent. I wish you the best. Lauren. I hit send. I watched the cursor blink on the empty screen. I felt nothing. No, that's wrong. I felt everything. It was the feeling of a heavy, soaking wet coat finally sliding off my shoulders. I realized in that moment what this was. We are taught that family is an unconditional contract. That blood is a bond you can't break without being a monster. But that's a lie. It's a lie told by the exploiters to keep the exploited in line. Choosing to walk away from people who are actively harming you isn't an act of cruelty. It's an act of profound self-preservation. It's not a betrayal. It's the ultimate act of loyalty. to yourself. I wasn't letting go of my family. I was letting go of my bloodline so I could finally find myself. I was choosing to build a new family based on respect, not just obligation. And that choice was final. The quiet that followed that final email was profound. I blocked their numbers. I blocked Aunt Susan. I set up a filter on my email that sent anything from their addresses directly to a folder I never opened. The legal threats stopped. The $75,000 IRS debt, now proven to be fraudulent and tied directly to my father's filings, was transferred back to him. 6 months passed. My life began. The promotion I'd been working for, the one I'd put on hold for so long, finally came through. Ben and I took the money I had, saved the money I was no longer hemorrhaging, and put a down payment on a beautiful condo overlooking the mountains. It felt solid. It felt earned. The bookstore was liquidated to pay the IRS debt. It wasn't enough. Not even close. I heard through the grapevine what happened next. The consequences weren't my revenge. They were just the natural, unavoidable result of gravity. My father Richard lost the house. He now works the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift at a big box hardware store stocking shelves to pay off the rest of his debt. My mother Karen works as a part-time cashier at a grocery store, the same one she used to shop at. And Olivia. She works at a coffee shop downtown. She hands out lattes. I'm told she's still writing her poetry on her breaks. I'm not angry anymore. I'm free. I realized I was never the atlas holding up their world. I was the atlas they had chained to it. By walking away, I didn't just drop the weight. I broke the chains. My true life began the moment I stopped paying for theirs. And this is what I need to say. To you, the person listening to this right now who feels this story in your bones. This is a letter to you. To the person who always feels like you're on the fringes of your own family. To the one who gets the calls for help but never the calls just to chat. To the one who is always so reliable and so responsible, which really just means your needs are always last. You are not the family ATM. You are not the family therapist. You are not the designated problem solver. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep your family warm. Your worth is not measured by your usefulness to them. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to build a life that doesn't require you to be invisible. Your peace is worth more than their comfort. Have you ever had to be the responsible one? Share your story in the comments. Your story matters, and I want you to know that you are seen.